Meri Brown has recently been active on TikTok, often going live with various creators who discuss sister wives. Some of these live streams are now appearing on YouTube. In one recent session, she participated in a Q&A where she addressed questions about the show, her post-polygamy life, and her current relationship with her former family. During the conversation, Meri touched on the recurring notion from fans that she continues to defend Kody and Robyn. She made it clear that her goal isn't to engage in a harsh or bitter separation. Instead, she prefers a peaceful, respectful divorce and chooses not to reveal personal details merely because she has the opportunity to do so. She emphasized that keeping parts of her life private doesn't mean she's unaware of what's happening around her. In this exchange, Meri responded to criticism that she was unaware of or ignored events shown in the series. Staying consistent with her message from the show, she explained that just because she didn't speak on certain matters doesn't imply she didn't observe them. Like viewers, she sometimes recognized things only after seeing them on air, but this doesn't mean she was oblivious to the dynamics involving Kody and Robyn. Interestingly, she expressed a willingness to extend some grace to Kody, suggesting that his actions might be rooted in a midlife crisis. Drawing from her own experience in 2015, she described how people sometimes need time and space to work through personal challenges. She related to that process, noting that she too had to reflect and grow before others could understand her actions. Reflecting on her past, Meri acknowledged that, in hindsight, it's easy to understand why others might have felt frustrated with her. Still, she emphasized the importance of reaching clarity at her own pace. She insisted she wasn't clueless about the situation and reaffirmed her values, particularly her belief in honoring commitments and not abandoning them when challenges arise. She suggested that Kody may have been experiencing a midlife crisis, a theme touched on several times throughout the show. Around that period, he seemed to feel the urge to make a drastic change, possibly tied to entering a new phase of life. He ended up with a younger woman, Robyn, and appeared to chase ambitions like becoming a movie star or actor. Ultimately, he distanced himself from the rest of the family, choosing a new path centered around Robyn. Meri has asked for some compassion, noting that as viewers, people tend to draw conclusions based on limited context. However, it's natural to interpret someone's words and actions to try to understand them. Given the culture they were part of, where women are conditioned to be steadfast and where commitments are viewed as eternal, it makes sense that Meri, having once fully believed in those ideals, would want to stand by them. Not everyone approaches such vows with the same seriousness, though. In contrast, Kody appeared to believe he could decide the validity of those commitments based on Meri's actions. For example, Meri mentioned that her involvement in a catfishing incident may have stemmed from her own midlife crisis. At the time, she was in her 40s, adjusting to an empty nest, and searching for a fresh direction in life. There were likely many moments when Meri could have chosen to walk away, but she didn't, and we may never fully understand why. What stands out most is the idea that when you're in a relationship, it's often easier for outsiders to see the problems than it is for the people involved. If someone isn't ready to let go, no external advice or opinion can change that. From that perspective, Meri's actions make sense. She believed in her commitment and truly hoped it would succeed, even though things ultimately didn't turn out that way. At one point, Meri seemed visibly unsettled by Christine's open conversations with David about her former relationship with Kody. Christine appears to be trying to process and understand her past relationship, especially now that she's in a monogamous partnership. The contrast has likely led her to reevaluate what she experienced before and to realize how different her new relationship feels. Christine often processes her thoughts by talking things out and bouncing ideas off others, and this might not sit well with Meri. Meri seems to interpret it as comparing people, but Christine's intention appears more about making sense of her unique situation, one that's very different from the experiences most people have had. Since Christine had never been in a monogamous relationship before, her exploration is about discovering how her past differs from her present. Meri, on the other hand, explained that she doesn't want to approach such conversations with a mindset of speaking negatively about Kody or drawing direct comparisons. She prefers to reflect on her past to identify what she learned and how she was treated, focusing on growth rather than venting or assigning blame. Meri mentioned that she's had to draw boundaries with people who press her for details or gossip. She explained that she's not interested in entertaining conversations that focus on scooping or prying, and she has had to end discussions when they became too intrusive. She recalled a conversation with a woman who had also been in a plural marriage. That woman told her that had they not been married to the same man, she and her sister wife could have likely been best friends. But within the family structure, jealousy, favoritism, and competition among the women made true friendship impossible. They were constantly competing for the husband's attention. Meri reflected that had she and Christine not married the same man, they might have actually been good friends. She noted similarities between Christine and her close friend Jen. Even though Meri says she avoids comparing Kody to others, like everyone else, she also has people she confides in. In the most recent season, Meri was shown opening up to her friends about her experiences with Kody. She didn't necessarily draw direct comparisons to other men or relationships, but she did speak candidly with Jen, two women who had left their religious community, and a friend in Las Vegas. These conversations often centered on what she went through during and after leaving the family. In many ways, that's quite similar to what Christine is doing with David. Christine feels most comfortable sharing with David, likely because he comes from a background where polygamy was familiar. His sisters were in polygamous marriages. That shared context may make David especially empathetic to Christine's experiences, offering her a sense of safety. Although Christine is speaking publicly, her actions aren't so different from Meri's. One can't help but wish they could both recognize how much they have in common. Despite their differences, Meri and Christine actually share many similar experiences. Both have endured significant emotional struggles. Christine, as the third wife, likely went through a great deal. She was never legally married to Kody, and her children were not recognized the same way as Meri's. Meri, holding legal wife status, may have been seen as having more authority or position, and Christine has openly stated that Meri did not treat her children well. On the other hand, Meri's situation was also challenging. She had to face her husband's ongoing infidelity, the arrival of new children into the family, and yet was expected to stay composed and suppress her emotions. These circumstances created pain on both sides. It's possible that if they could work through their history, they might find friendship, but there seems to be too much emotional baggage standing in the way. Both women handle things in their own ways, and neither is necessarily wrong for doing so. The speaker also relates to this, explaining how in early stages of a relationship, it's common to reflect on past ones, not. In long-term relationships, people often find themselves talking through prior experiences. It's not always about comparison in a competitive sense. It's more about making sense of where you've been to better appreciate where you are. The speaker reflects that Meri may now have that sense of emotional safety with her friends, something she was once conditioned to expect from her sister wives. Now, through these friendships, Meri might be discovering what real, unconditional support feels like. Still, the speaker wishes that Meri and Christine could see how much common ground they truly share. Unfortunately, the continued airing of personal grievances on their shared show likely makes reconciliation harder, as watching each other criticize and relive painful moments isn't exactly conducive to healing. The conversation then turned toward Robyn. When asked if Meri still has a relationship with Robyn, she admitted, "There's really not much of one anymore." Meri elaborated on the nature of her current relationship with Robyn, referencing their distance during the tell-all episode. She recalled telling Robyn that she genuinely didn't know how to be friends with the wife of her ex-husband. She expressed a strong desire to handle things with kindness and maturity, and mentioned she had multiple conversations with Kody about approaching their separation in a respectful, compassionate way. However, the reality, according to Meri, has been inconsistent. Sometimes it's amicable, other times not so much. She shared that she no longer sees Robyn's children, and especially Mrs. Solomon, with whom she had a close bond. Her repeated sentiment, "I don't know how to not be friends with my ex-husband's wife," highlights the emotional complexity of navigating post-divorce relationships within a former polygamous family. Meri's comments seem to reflect a deep internal conflict. Imagine being mistreated by an ex-husband and then witnessing his current wife, someone you were once close to, stand by silently, dismissing the tension as merely their issue. That would make it hard to maintain any sense of trust or safety in the relationship with that person. From Meri's perspective, anything she shares with Robyn would likely be passed along to Kody, removing any sense of emotional confidentiality. And that's not unusual in marriages. Spouses generally don't keep secrets from each other. Knowing Robyn's tendency to defend or enable Kody's behavior, Meri likely feels that continuing a friendship under those circumstances would be emotionally unsafe and potentially manipulative. Robyn, according to the speaker, has a pattern of influencing Meri's perception, often framing Kody's actions in a sympathetic light. She might say things like, "Kody still cares," or "he wants to make it work," encouraging Meri to hold on, while subtly excusing his behavior. At the same time, there may be an effort to shift blame onto Meri, suggesting that if she had just done this or acted differently, things could have been better. Even though Kody and Robyn are now in a monogamous relationship, the cultural environment they come from tends to place fault on women regardless of the circumstances. Men are often portrayed as having good intentions, while women who leave are vilified, depicted as malicious or emotionally unstable. In such a dynamic, maintaining a friendship with Robyn becomes nearly impossible, especially if Meri feels like she's being repeatedly run over by the same narrative and blamed for the breakdown of the relationship. It's incredibly hard to maintain a friendship with someone who, either directly or indirectly, supports a version of events where you're repeatedly portrayed as the villain. On top of that, there's a deep sense of betrayal that comes when someone you once trusted presents one face to you privately, but says different things behind your back. Meri acknowledged in her interview with Tamron Hall that she felt the most tension with Robyn compared to anyone else. It's worth wondering why Christine has been able to clearly call out Robyn's behavior, while Meri seems to hold back. Perhaps Meri is more reserved or chooses her words more cautiously. While it's clear why Christine and Robyn clash, Christine sees through Robyn's actions. Meri's hesitancy might stem from loyalty, restraint, or a different emotional threshold. Christine appears to have a clear understanding of Robyn's role and behavior in their shared history, including how Robyn treated Meri. It's possible that Meri's continued loyalty to Robyn, even after all that's happened, has worked against her. Still, if Meri has chosen to set a boundary by distancing herself, that may be a healthy move. Robyn, according to the speaker, has a way of pulling people back in, often in ways that deflect blame or distort accountability. Meri's choice to step back might be a necessary part of her healing process. And that wraps up what Meri shared in her discussion. Now the question is, do you believe they'll ever be able to reconcile and find common ground? Or has too much happened for that to ever be possible? Don't miss the next headline. Like, subscribe and turn on that notification bell.